The last step, step 20, is to run all the reports. At this point, we have a schedule that has gone through 19 steps to verify it's correct, has the correct logic, has the correct calendars, has the correct duration, has the correct cost. And now we want to produce tangible reports to be able to show our client, the government, whomever, exactly what we produced. So um, we want to make sure, as a last ditch effort, we want to make sure we have all the summary tasks open, right? Everything is viewable, and we want to start producing the reports. Now, this report, which you see here, is standard Gantt report. It is sorted by view, sort by start date. In each individual summary task, this is called a banded schedule. The banded schedule is what we're used to looking at. It's very good from a project management perspective, but it may not be very good from a site management perspective. But this is one of the reports we want to produce. So once we have everything open and we've gone through all the previous 19 steps, we go File, Print. Now you can have a PDF writer. Some people export it to a PDF. I print to either some type of writer like Bluebeam, and I want to print the entire project. I want to print it on a 11 by 17. I want to have a landscape format. Okay, we can print between specific dates, but for the baseline schedule, we want to produce the entire project. Now you can see the print preview, and this is what's really interesting about the new, last few versions of Microsoft Project, is you're able to see, what it looks like when it's printed out. We can't see the Gantt chart view, so we're going to go to page setup here, and in the page setup, we're going to make sure instead of adjusting it by a percentage, we're going to say we're going to have one wide. So we want to have the entire schedule fit wide, including the Gantt chart, and we want to have like 20 tall or 50 tall, enough to where we can, it could be 30 tall. That's fine as long as it's one wide. We're on a tabloid, which is 11 by 17, and we simply hit OK. And you can see now it adjusted the time frame to be able to put all the individual activities in there. You have all the columns there. You can see all the individual activities. So we can go page by page, cycle down to make sure it's visible. If we want to compress it and get it, instead of 4 pages, we can make it, instead of putting 20 there, we can make it, now that we know that it's about 4 pages, we can try to make it 3 and kind of compress it a little bit more. Make it a little more compressed. A lot of times, you may only have one activity on the last page, and you may want to compress it to only a certain amount of pages. So that gives you a printout. You simply just print it. Just hit print at that point, and it'll generate a PDF version of that schedule. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it as an example. It's going to save it, and remember, when we save it, we want to use the naming structure that we originally came up with. This is the baseline schedule, and we want to say this is for the warehouse project, warehouse building, and then we want to put a date associated with it. So I'll put 10/10/2017 and hit save. And of course, when you bring it up, it should look just like the print preview. We can adjust numerous different things. We can remove the legends, we can compress things, but this is pretty much a standard. Okay, so that's the banded schedule. So let's switch gears now, and let's do a continuous flow. So we simply go to Format, remove the summary task, and then we go View, Sort by Start Date. And what this is this is called a continuous flow schedule. Same information, just sorted in a different manner. This helps someone like the superintendent in the field produce a schedule. They can look on a day-by-day basis or a week-by-week basis and be able to see what they should be doing. Now, most superintendents say, well, it says on 9/3, we should be doing this work here. However, I'm doing stuff that should be taking place in 9/24. As long as they're getting everything done in that week and they're getting stuff done ahead of time, that's okay. Many superintendents get confused by that. Just because it says that we should be only doing this stuff doesn't mean that doesn't give us opportunities to do more than that, so they can go into weeks down the road. We just need to make sure we focus and get everything done this week, or at least the things that are on the critical path. So we want to file, print this, and do the same thing, have the same setup, 11 by 17. We want to print the entire project. We want to print the PDF. We want to look at our page setup. And once you set up the page setup on an individual project, it'll keep those same settings. We want to fit to 3. We want a landscape view on a tabloid. And you can see just a different way of looking at it. It's very helpful to someone like, say, in the field superintendent. What I like doing also is I like removing the submittals from it if I'm going to give it to a superintendent. So I like minimizing the submittals, and what that'll do is it'll complete, when you remove these summary tasks, none of the development or review of a submittal will show here. It'll only show the work that's expanded under each summary task. So we can put the actual construction work rather than just all the project administration. The superintendent doesn't necessarily have to be concerned about submittals. That's just more of a project management function, or may or not be within their realm of responsibility. So we could take all of pre-construction out and just focus on construction. And now you can see they're just looking at construction, view, sort by start date, and these are all the construction tasks. So much easier to view and read. So that's what they call a continuous flow. The last thing, and of course we have narrative associated with it, which we've already gone through in step 18, where we create a narrative, okay? But we also want to, the last report we want to look at, and this doesn't really play into, really doesn't factor into a baseline schedule, but it's good to do, to look at and produce, because they have to make sure it's cost loaded correctly. So we want to go ahead and remember, every time you minimize a section, and it's not going to show that data in the reports you're running. So it's very important that these sections are expanded so that the data is available for viewing, especially when you do reports. So the next thing we want to do is a cash flow analysis. Now, we've done this before in a previous step where we looked at cash flow. However, we want to produce a report. So we want to go to the cash flow report, and then we want to do the same thing here where we go File, Print. Okay, now you can see we have an issue here. This is an 11 by 17, so we want to change it to a tabloid. It's 8.5 by 11. We want to change it to 11 by 17. Okay, we want to be able to, see all the data on there, and you can see we have the entire project in there. We have a graphic here to show us what's going on, and we can see at the bottom that we have a remaining cost and the actual cost, and this is for the baseline schedule. An owner can look at this, or a representative from from a government agency can look at this, and they can say, well, look, we're not front end loaded on the schedule. So that's what they're going to look at, and if they don't have the software, they cannot determine if it's properly cost loaded. So it's important to produce this report so they can look at it. You see, remember I drew in that line there, that hypothetical line, and it's kind of an explanation a little bit there of what you're doing. Hey, this is where we hypothetically should be. This is where we actually are. So it shows the difference there. And it shows that you're not front end loading, meaning your orange line is not above that hypothetical line. So of course that is a cash flow report. or people refer to it as the earned value report. It's what earned value, what we actually have earned. So we go ahead and print that. So we kind of cover the different reports that we have to produce. I will say once again that it's very important to have everything open, not closed, right? Open, so we're able to show them and produce the information. Some people will want to look at a network diagram. Network diagram is really only good for, and you can see I went over here to the under tasks, Gantt chart, network diagram, and the only reason that people look at this is just determine if you have a closed network. It looks at the critical path. You see the rectangles that are slanted, right? Those are summary tasks. The regular rectangles are just actual activities. You can put your cursor over top of it and it'll show you what it is. But you can see what the critical path is, and you can see if if an activity doesn't have a line coming out of the right side, it is an open network. So this is a real quick way, instead of looking at predecessors and successors as I previously have told you, you can also look here to make sure there's a line going in and a line going out. So it's just a graphical way, and sometimes people will want to see this report. You can go File, Print. Now the problem is that this is such a large, unless you plot it on a very large and E style 34 by 44 inches, it can be very difficult to get everything in here. And then it not only to get it in here, but to be viewable is very difficult. So if we say we want it to be 10 wide or something like that, you can see it's very difficult to view it. But if anyone asks you for a precedence diagram, also known as a network diagram within the software, this is what it is. Very difficult to read unless you have a large a large paper to print to, like a size E or something. So that covers the reports that we're required to submit. If it has a scheduling spec, it may require more than that, but the basic reports are a banded report, a continuous flow report, an earned value report, and a narrative. So make sure those are all the items that I have shown you how to print here. And at the end, you always want to save the file, save as, and you always want to save that to an individual schedule. So remember the naming structure that we're going to have. We would say baseline schedule warehouse, and that's what I PDF there. This is going to be an MPP file, and when we save it, that MPP file, you'll see it says right up there at the top what you save the file as. Make sure you have that date because it helps you, get your handles around which schedule you should draw from. And that covers the reports you're required to submit. And one last time, the banded report, the earned value report, the continuous flow report, and the narrative. If you produce those reports, you give the information that the owner or the government needs, or the owner's rep needs, to be able to review the schedule and give you approval. So that covers everything you need to know about putting a baseline schedule together. And now you're ready to continue with construction and use this schedule for what its intent was, and that's to execute the construction process. That's step 20, running reports.